I'm Danny Otto. Welcome into an all-new episode of That Recap Show. Now, before we get into the episode, just wanted to announce, major spoiler alert, we are going to be going over everything that happened in Ghostbusters Frozen Empire. So if you haven't watched that movie yet, you may want to pause this video, head to your local theaters, watch that movie, and then come back and enjoy the breakdown. Now, with that out of the way, let's start the show!
Poppin' Off presents That Recap Show.
All right, joining with me to break down everything from Ghostbusters Frozen Empire, it's Jon Jon Rico! Hey, wait a minute!
I was muted! Courage!
What? I thought we were wearing our Ghostbusters uniforms. What's going on here?
Oh, it was mine's in the dry cleaners.
Our pre-show call, you were like, yeah, suit up, man. I was like, yeah.
This is awkward.
This is you blew it!
First I was muted and my Ghostbusters outfit.
I thought we were gonna come out saying Busted makes me feel good.
Oh.
I thought we were all in on
Busted makes me feel good.
Well, this is awkward.
Yeah.
Anyway, Ghostbusters Frozen Empire. I am excited. I'm suited up. I actually have my Proton Pack sitting back there. I was like, how can I arrange it where I'm actually wearing the Proton Pack and somehow be able to host? And I was like, it's not going to happen. It's way too big, way too heavy. Anyway, Ghostbusters Frozen Empire. I did not go to the theater like this. I went in my normal clothes.
Liar.
Just with a Ghostbusters t-shirt. I had a Ghostbusters t-shirt.
Okay.
I had a Ghostbusters t-shirt. But anyway, there were some people that were awesome and had some really cool. I've seen photos and videos on the internet where people actually made backpacks with projector screens that had Slimer moving and all it. Awesome.
People go all out, man. It's crazy.
Incredible stuff that some people have crafted and just wore them to the premiere. Obviously, I'm sure they use it for Comic-Cons and stuff like that. Absolutely incredible. Anyway, Ghostbusters Frozen Empire movie as a whole, have to say this. Definitely parts that I loved. And the parts that I loved hit really well for me. But yeah, there were some parts that, weren't so great. And look, that's not bad. We were talking before we even started recording. I like that they tried stuff. Some stuff isn't always going to work, but we didn't get a recycled story. We got something new. We got some things where we tried a lot of stuff. And that's exactly what I texted you when I got out of the theater. I was like, I need time to process because I was like, a lot. It's a lot. And I meant it in a good way, but I was just like, there's a lot of information. There's a lot of stuff going on in this movie. And I just, overall, I thought I liked it. I told you this too. I'm just happy we got a new Ghostbusters movie. I consider that a win in my book anyway. So I was really happy. And what was really cool is when we were talking after you got a chance to finally see it, we started talking about where this falls kind of in our rankings for Ghostbusters movies in general. And we were pretty much spot on with our rankings.
Similar,
yeah. First one, obviously original. That came out of nowhere type of thing. And I will always love that. That's why I have the Venkman patch and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
And then Ghostbusters Afterlife, I think, is a really cool follow-up. This is where we left off, years and years down the line. I thought it was up
a love
to
letter
date.
to Ghostbusters, essentially. Right. Yeah.
And then for me, at least, I know you kind of go back and forth, but for me, this movie is my third on that list. And we were talking about this. It's a close third to Ghostbusters 2 because there are things, I don't think either one is a perfect movie. But there are things that I really enjoy in Ghostbusters 2, and there are things that I really enjoy in Frozen Empire. And I think there are more things that I happened to enjoy in Frozen Empire overall that'll make me want to rewatch the movie than with Ghostbusters 2. Not saying Ghostbusters 2 is in any way a bad movie, not saying anything like that, just more saying like I think there were more things in this movie that's going to make me want to rewatch it in like a rewatching all of the series basically type of thing. I
Mhm.
think I'll be more excited to rewatch Frozen Empire based off of the potential I think we could have for more stuff in the future moving forward. But Rio, what were some of your instant reactions to the movie? I mean, I didn't want to dive in too deep because we have so much to talk about with this movie. Obviously, you know, when we cover shows, it's kind of quick, but like this movie would take a little bit longer to go through some of the stuff. But Rigo, some instant reactions or even rankings for you if yours are a little bit different than mine for this movie.
Yeah, as far as the rankings go, I would say right now they would lean probably the same as yours for the time being, but I'm definitely going back and forth on whether I like this one or if I like Ghostbusters 2 more for sure. I think I'm getting closer to leaning more towards Ghostbusters 2 at the moment. But I think it's just because this movie is just like more fresh in my mind, there's a lot more I can pick apart from it. And kind of like help Ghostbusters 2's case, I feel like in this matter. But I definitely wanted to like the movie more than I did, but I didn't hate my experience, watching it. I think it's still a really fun movie, especially to watch in the theaters. Especially me not being as much as a Ghostbusters guy like you, of course.
Right.
Like you grew up loving the movie. Like I grew up like seeing the movies occasionally, and I like them, but I never like kind of did a deep dive into them like the way other fans have. So uh I think the one thing I think this movie that is kind of like to this movie's detriment, of course, we were talking about this earlier, is that it kind of suffers from having to follow up a movie like Afterlife, which is really just like a love letter to the franchise and just handled so well because there was a lot of pressure on that movie to do well. And there's definitely like a lot less pressure on this movie, I feel like, just
Right.
because of the success of that movie. And I feel like this one's just kind of missing that emotional hook that the first one had when it comes to the Egon story. And so I find myself uh, uh trying to find something to attach to in this movie, but it's juggling a lot. There's a lot
Right.
in this movie that's trying to juggle. There's a lot of characters, there's a lot of moving threads that you're just trying to like some that aren't like addressed until like much later than when they first started, of course. So it's an enjoyable movie experience, and but it's one thing that when you talk about it, you can start picking things apart, and it's like, okay, that's understandable why they probably did things like that, and then like, why did they do that? And there's a lot of those for me.
I mean, what you're talking about? Like I said, no wrong answers. I do think it's really cool because we have a two unique perspectives. I mean, for me, you know, growing up loving Ghostbusters all the time, any new Ghostbusters content, I'm consuming video games,
Yeah,
you know, comics, even like like I cartoon, like
yeah,
I want Ghostbusters. Um, and then you coming from a not as big of a fan, I think it's always been interesting. Like even when we were doing the retro recaps to kind of get ready for this, we
hmm
had those two unique perspectives of them.
yeah,
More of like you almost not seeing it for the first time, but you almost like having fresh eyes on it, and me going, "Oh yeah, I've seen this 15 times. I love that part. I love this part." Like stuff like that. So
right,
it's
yeah.
pretty cool that we can kind of have this kind of discussion. But what you were
I'm
saying,
still picking up new things every
yeah,
single time I watch every movie. Yeah, it's
yeah,
crazy.
exactly. But what you were saying kind of leads perfectly into my big takeaways. So do you want to get to some big takeaways?
I do, but I do want to say one more thing is that the
Okay.
one thing I love about the Ghostbusters, the original Ghostbusters movie was like the balance of the sci-fi and the comedy. And I think that the new movies they do a good job of incorporating both sci-fi and comedy into the movies, but I feel like they've almost taken a little bit more of a serious tone. I don't want to say it's almost like an MCU inspired tone, but I feel like it's something that we see often in those movies, of course, where like you're bringing in like a nice you're trying to bring in like a little bit of drama into but also comedy and also action at the same time, just kind of make it feel more, I guess, like natural and real of a story. I almost feel like I love that we get like the Ghostbusters music and stuff like that. Like a lot of the score and stuff is really what is kind of what helps bring it back in for me.
Right.
I just would have liked the story to take more of what's a humorous sci-fi approach to it, and there's definitely some elements of that in here, of course. I just like to lean a little bit more into that.
Yeah. No, I can't disagree with you. But what I do think is, I think on paper, original Ghostbusters isn't directly like a comedy either,
Mhm.
but it helped that
Yes,
everyone
comedy
like
megastars.
right, exactly. In
Yeah.
this, we have Paul Rudd who can do comedy type of
Mhm.
thing. Pretty much the only actor that really is like comedic, like can be a comedic actor type of thing.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So I think it's more of like that. It's more of like
You
you
try to
can
take it
make
into an action team,
right.
essentially. Yeah.
You can make a not on paper comedy if you have the right people. And I just think like maybe that's why it kind of feels less like a comedy
Mhm.
than the original, only because like on paper I think both of them kind of, both have the same amount of, dark and stuff like that. It's just, using comedic actors, you're
Yeah.
able to kind of have those one-liners and stuff in there more often.
I likened it to kinda like watching, like, the Fantastic Four of Ghostbusting, basically, and
That's
I
what you
thought
said.
yeah, I think of that, especially the opening scene, right? Like, or like The Incredibles or something like that.
Yeah.
Just kinda seeing the family dynamic hero team, basically, like, but now we're busting ghosts.
But anyway, now, do you want to get to some big takeaways?
Let's do it.
Awesome. All right, I'm gonna give up big takeaways just because what you're talking about kind of flows perfectly into this. And this, I legitimately had this thought while I was still in the theater, still watching the movie before we were in the third act, but it was before we got to like the big, battle. I was like, I feel like this movie may have benefited if it had been made into a two-parter. And I mean, hear me out. There's like I said, there's a lot of stuff I really enjoyed in this movie. Some stuff didn't hit as well as I think, but like some things I would have liked to have seen breathe longer. And one of those is when Phoebe gets benched, I would have liked to have seen the other three go out on those
Yeah.
missions. And I would have liked to see them maybe fail, or maybe, it'd be a lot harder, or like, you know what I mean? Like I would have
Focusing on the actual team.
right.
Yeah.
I would have liked to have seen how that dynamic suffered because Phoebe wasn't there, or just not having another person when normally, it's a four teammate squad. Like, you know what I
Mhm.
mean? Like, I would have liked to have seen that dynamic shift and seen that. So I would have liked to see some of that. I also really enjoyed Ray, Podcast, and Phoebe together. I thought that dynamic was funny, and they had some goofy moments, and I loved them kind of uncovering what the orb was and all of this stuff. So I would have
Right.
liked to seen more steps of that. I get like the progression we had was really quick, and it's because Ray has the occult shop, so he was able to do a little bit of research there, and then they went to his contact in the library, and they were able to figure it out pretty quick.
They introduced Nadim to the whole storyline as well,
Right.
like, a lot
Right.
happens through that whole story.
Right, exactly. But I would have loved to have seen a little bit more with that group too at the same time. So like these are the things that like I enjoyed, and I would have loved to have seen given more time to breathe, and
Right.
and just kind of given more stuff to us. I was even telling you, like, I didn't particularly love like the ghost research lab stuff. Like I liked it, but I didn't love it. It wasn't like one of my absolute favorite. But even that, I would have liked to have seen more of that kind of breathe. Like this is something that the
Yeah.
main characters knew nothing about. So I would have loved to have seen like, just more of them kind of figuring out what it was, how long it's been going, like, you know what I mean? Like that kind of stuff. I would have loved to have seen just things breathing longer. And then we have, we can still have the key moments that happened where the orb gets opened and the big baddie is released. But I think what would have been cool is, remember the shot from the trailers where we had the entire cast in like the red overcoats, and they were
Right.
standing on the roof with
From
the
the third
proton
act, yeah.
packs and everything. I think that's the end. Or I think the end is maybe the big bad getting released, and we see the scene on the beach where everything's icing over and people are running and the city's getting iced over. Hit the credits, and then the mid credit scene is the entire team in their gear standing on the roof, overlooking completely frozen New York City, and then it's just like says in chilled letters, "To be continued."
Mhm.
Like, and then we would have had more time for those story arcs to breathe throughout this, to kind of get more stuff into it. We could have even had, Phoebe and the girl Ghost We could have had more of that breathe, so it feels a little bit more emotionally satisfying when she ends up ultimately helping in the final battle type of thing. Could have even had that breathe a little bit more. And then we pick up the second part. We pick up the second part with kind of more of, ghosts running amok, more of this big bad, like cultivating an army of ghosts. So it's not just him. Like, I get he was very strong, and the only way they were able to beat him was kind of to use what they knew they could use against him, type of thing.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I mean, having him kind of cultivate more of a ghost army. Like, they even said, like, they're gonna have to face all of their original ghosts and that they've ever battled before and stuff like that. Like, I would have loved to have seen that kind of build up where we're seeing, like, maybe Stay Puft is there, and maybe like, like Scolari brothers, like, you know what I mean, like stuff like that. They could have used all of that extra time if they had made a two-parter, like, to have those kind of things, to have this more through line story. These other threads could have had more payoff and stuff like that. So that was like, it's not even a complaint. It's just how I think it all could have benefited for this movie if they had been able to kind of expand it and made it not just thinking about, okay, we have to wrap all of this up in an hour and a half. If we have 3 hours to wrap all of this up as a two-parter, they film it all together and then, hit cut when they feel like is a natural pausing point between movie 1 and movie 2 type of thing. I think it really could have benefited to kind of just have more of a build and a slower burn and these other key things be able to breathe. And that was kind of my biggest takeaway. I felt like that because the things that I liked, I really liked and I really loved and I wanted to see more of. But Rico, what were some of your takeaways from this? I know we were kind of talking about this ahead of time, and it's kind of like we agreed on a lot of stuff, in it. So,
yeah. So I want to talk about some of the things I definitely did like from this movie because I know we have a lot of criticism and stuff like that, but and stuff that we think could have helped the movie more. But there's definitely a lot of stuff in the movie that I thought worked really well.
Oh yeah.
Also. I actually like the ghost research station. I didn't necessarily like that we got so much focus on the one researcher guy that I want to talk a little bit about him too. But I liked the different like ghosts and stuff that we got in there.
Oh, that was cool. Don't get me wrong. Yeah, that was cool.
The one that we see the most is the one that goes from inanimate objects. I forget the name they gave it, but I thought the way they handled that was really cool. And then there's the other kind of like demonic looking ghost in there, which I thought really looked awesome. And the one that kind of like peeks his head out and then the things come back in and he goes back inside. Like I thought all those looked really cool. I like the creature designs on this and like the way they kind of blend the practical and CG effects, like the way they did in the original Ghostbusters movies, I thought was really well handled. I thought Slimer actually like looked great. Like when you see his hand going out to grab the snacks, like you could tell it's a puppet. And so like that's really cool. I like seeing the library lady again. So like the little like nods to the past, like kind of like just kind of thrown in there. I did kind of like that a lot. And then the biggest laugh of the movie for me, of course, is when we get to see Venkman again. And he's kind of doing the psych test on the Dean. And he's just throwing the pens at him, and and you see like he's just like pissing them off. But that's where we get the first hints of him being the fire master too. That you're seeing the flame in the background. But I just like that's how you brought him in, like just kind of doing his old thing and just kind of like torturing people. Like I said, he only does it to the boys. Yeah. So of course, like he found his opportunity to mess with another one. So yeah, I really did like that a lot. But I want to go back to the researcher guy, the British dude. I don't remember his name. But we were talking about this before we started recording too, how we were talking about like the different ways certain things were handled. Like I was not a big fan of the whole Phoebe ghost storyline at all. Just like I'm not the biggest fan of Phoebe as a character in general. I've talked about this before, but so I couldn't find myself attaching to that storyline very much. And I felt like a better route than like using the ghost to kind of like double cross Phoebe when she turns into a ghost herself, and then of course they do that whole thing with releasing Garaka. It would have been cooler if you had used him, the British researcher guy, as a way to unlock. Like we were talking about the way they use like people who are on the team in some form or someone like close to somebody on team, just like they did in the last movie, like how they did the two dogs, like the name again. But how like you use them as kind of like you corrupt them or possess them to be the ones to kind of like unlock the big bad right at the end. So I almost feel like if we were gonna get so much of him in the movie, at least I would have liked it to lead to something like that. If he was gonna get that much screen time, because again, there's a lot of characters and storylines that get screen time that take away from much more important storylines. In my opinion, like I don't think we need to spend as much time as we did on Trevor and Slimer. And it kind of pays off a little bit at the end because Slimer eats the other ghost, right? The inanimate object ghost. Is that like what the whole resolution is with that? So, yeah, it's like, but I don't think we needed like 2 or 3 failed attempts of him trying to trap Slimer, only for him to just be like, okay, I give up on this. Yeah, but there's a lot of fun stuff in this movie for sure. I really like the gadgets and stuff, the drone trap and the way they you always got to throw in some new stuff in there.
Yeah, the drone trap is incredible.
I thought that was really cool.
I want that and the RC trap so badly. Like I want them. Yeah. I want a company to make those as toys so badly. Like,
I'm sure that's got to be something.
Take my money. Do. They still don't have the RC trap after Afterlife. That's been that many years.
I was gonna say that was from Afterlife, right? Yeah.
Still don't have it.
Yeah.
I have my regular trap. Come on, RC companies. But anyway, yeah. But I want to go on record. Any criticism that I have, and I'm sure same for you, comes from a place of love and loving this franchise of Ghostbusters and stuff like that. In no way am I like
there's no malice behind it.
Yeah. In no way either one of us want to pick apart this movie like to say because it's bad or anything like that.
Yeah.
If you haven't
seen Madam Web.
Right. But yeah, I loved the Venkman and Nadeem scene so much. Like I like when he's just asking random questions. He's like, do you prefer when you eat your humans, do you prefer them with or without skin?
Yeah.
Like, what? What if I don't how do I answer that question?
Yeah.
Is there a right answer?
It's just really great comedic acting.
Yeah.
Like that's the stuff that I love about those movies.
Yeah.
When you get those character moments, and I was like, yeah. So I love that stuff.
Yeah, I thought that was awesome. I also I understood kind of the Phoebe and the Ghost Girl. The reason that kind of made sense to me is because they're talking about it very early on in the movie. When Phoebe gets benched, that they're like, go out, make mistakes. Like, you know what I mean? Like,
right.
It kind of, when you think about it now, it's like, oh shit, they were setting that up right away. Like, she's a normal teenager making normal teenager mistakes. Like, we've all, like, when we were like teenagers, kind of got blinded by, either a friendship or a love interest that, like, maybe potentially used us for something. Like, you know what I mean? Like, it's just, that's relatable, and that's a teenage relatable thing. And it just so happened that, she got used to unleash a deadly ghost. Like, you know what I mean? Yeah. But I got that, especially looking back on it now, I kind of understand that a little bit more. That storyline kind of makes sense, and that works for her to have been the one that made the mistake to trusting in someone and releasing the big bad type of thing. But we were like you said, we were talking, and I did think one of the scenes from the original trailers where the British researcher grabs the orb and gets frozen, I thought that was going to be him getting possessed by the big bad.
Yeah, but it was just showing us like the effects of holding it, right? Or whatever it was, yeah. Yeah,
touching it when it was starting to emit, I guess, PK spikes in PKE energy or whatever. But do you want to get to some predictions?
Yeah, let's do it.
Awesome. All right, I'm gonna kick off predictions too. I'm sorry, but I'm really hoping that the reception for this movie is good enough that we get the ability to have another sequel, because I really want to see more from this. I think, like I have told other people that hadn't seen it yet, and I kind of said there was a lot going on. They didn't take giant leaps like out of character for Ghostbusters and Ghostbusters franchise, but they took steps. They took steps and tried stuff, and some stuff really worked, and some stuff didn't work as well, type of
Mhm.
thing. So I'm really hoping they get a chance to make another sequel, like a follow up sequel to this, so that they can then adapt to, okay, that worked. Let's do that. This didn't work. Let's do that. Let's focus more on the core family. Let's have this, like, you know what I mean? Like, I feel like there's definitely really good elements that they can use to build a sequel really well. What I would love to see in a sequel is Winston, now that obviously he's the backer of the research center and of the firehouse.
Right.
And obviously, with the way that it ended, Mayor Peck, has to,
Dickless.
has to endorse the Ghostbusters. So they're going to be making money and stuff like that. I hope that we actually get a story where, this starts becoming more and more successful again. And Winston is able to expand, not just regionally, but internationally. Because I would love to see a sequel to this being like in the UK, where they're first opening, a new Ghostbusters research center. Like maybe now it's all going to just be called Ghostbusters, because now that's going to start being a household name. That's, at least in the States, it's going to be a household name,
Mhm.
and build more on that. So maybe the research center is also just Ghostbusters research. I would love to see that, like an expansion international, and then we have like the early stages of it starting in the UK, and then they need the core team to go over there and help. So we've got Winston, we've got our new core team coming back. Maybe we get, I'd assume we're gonna get the British researcher, because like I said, that's why I picked the UK, because maybe he has a connection over there, type of thing, and he's like the head of the new one, whereas the one in the States now is going to be manned by somebody else. I can see that being pretty cool. And maybe even merging the firehouse with, because I mean, the containment unit, they were moving everything over to the research center containment unit anyway. So like maybe that's going to be like the new place. I don't want to ever get rid of the firehouse, believe me. But maybe that just turns into their house moving forward. And then the research center is actually where like the new containment stuff is moving forward. But yeah, for me, predictions wise, I would love to see a sequel where they expand internationally and we get a UK centric movie type of thing. I think that would be really cool, and it would just be, we get like, a big bad that just so happens to be something tied to myth or something, or legend, or something, in ancient history, because we're dealing with Europe and UK and where there's like older stuff, I guess, than the US. They don't have to make an excuse for why it ended up being in the US. They can now do it with like the more ancient countries and continent type of thing. What about
Right.
you? What do you think? What would you like to see, I guess, moving forward in a perfect situation?
You know, wait. So the movie ends with the ghosts escaping, right? Like a bunch of ghosts get out and
Right.
they're
So they're
loose
going to be
out in the
busy.
city.
Basically,
Right. So
they're
there's
going to get super busy.
yeah. So you have stuff you can do in a sequel there for sure.
Yeah.
Having to if there's a lot that got out, one could have been super bad, and that's the one that you got to really focus on. The post credits scene of this movie is the Stay Puffs. I
The
call them the
mini.
minions of this
Yeah.
franchise. Stealing a Stay Puff Marshmallow truck, and so um one of the things I kind of want to see now is, just if you're going to do a callback to the original movie, you have a bunch of mini Stay Puffs that do like this Voltron like transformation into like a giant Stay Puff again. But maybe instead of being like an evil one that terrorizes the city, it's like a good one. Maybe like it like in the last moment, it comes in and like defeats the big bad, like no, and then like splashes this goo all over it, and then they end up taking it out or something like that. Maybe that'd be a funny way for them to like defeat a final boss. I think I'd be totally down for something like that. But yeah, kind of along the same lines of like some of the stuff you said. I like when I want I want there to be more of a focus on the main family themselves. If you're and bringing in characters like Podcast and Lucky as well. Like you bring in Lucky as like an actual girlfriend to Trevor, and maybe you can get like some kind of emotional attachment with something like that. So if something did happen to one of those characters, like one of those other characters would feel it.
Right.
So that's something you can do there, and of course, just like have it like do something where like podcast is essentially like basically adopted into the family. It just feels like if you're not going to introduce his family, just make them his kind of like his family basically. I do love the stuff with him and Ray as well. I actually do love that Ray kind of gets like a solid little character arc here. I love the stuff they talk about with the golden years
Yeah.
and all that. Like he's given like some pretty good stuff in this movie for sure. I like the stuff between him and Winston a lot. So like if you are gonna bring another one, just stick to Winston and Ray. Like I don't think Bill Murray needs to be brought in for like 5 minutes of screen time, even though like he does a great job with that 5 to 10 minutes. Like I just like just let them chill. Like let these guys, it's like they fit in this world and like their characters are just like they're just totally into it. It seems like. So yeah, I would just like to see more of a focus and on like again bringing back that whole like Fantastic Four / Incredibles energy. Like do something with that and like give the mom something to do again in this movie. Like she had a great character arc in the first movie, with the whole Egon stuff. But like let's focus more on that family dynamic for sure.
Yeah, definitely. I would love just thinking about you kind of talking about podcast and Ray.
Mm-hmm.
I would love to see a web series of just of like short
Web series
episodes. Yeah, and it would be right up in character for them to do a web series.
One of those ones that they show them filming up or something like that.
Yeah,
like, sorry, ladies, it gets the views. Like,
yeah, that would be a cool way to kind of kick off the web series, but then
Mhm.
it turns into it's like more of like a Ray and podcast, not journal is the wrong word for it, but just kind of like documenting process of
Right.
weird stuff that gets brought in, not being smashed, obviously, but like doing research on it. It could even, slowly work its way towards, elements of what a sequel is going to be. Like maybe
Right.
somebody brings in something from, another country and they're like, oh, we've got to go there and investigate this. And that's the,
do like a short or something like that.
yeah,
like
but that's what I'm
like,
thinking,
yeah.
like multiple web shorts, but like have it as a series because it's in
Mhm.
character for them because they were already doing that kind of thing.
Yeah.
And I loved their dynamic. I thought that was hilarious. And podcast, obviously, he makes podcasts, and he's doing web series and stuff like that. He's getting Ray into wanting to do, web series and stuff like that. So I think that's a perfect in-universe extra feature that they could be doing right now, to kind of get you pumped for.
And they have like these like magical like human beings now, like Nadim, basically, who like you could start incorporating stuff like that. Like if you're expanding what the team can be, you're like, now we have a fire master on our team.
Yeah.
And like it's good. It's crazy. Like you can turn the Ghostbusters into like this Ghostbusting Avengers type thing where you have people of all these different abilities and talents to kind of help out. So you really, they did open the door for quite a bit of potential here.
Yeah. And that's what I'm excited about. And that's kind of what I told you is they tried a lot of stuff. Maybe everything didn't stick as well as they hoped for, but the stuff that did, I think is awesome. And the potential that it has with hopefully getting a sequel. I would also love to see it. I mean, if we're going perfect case scenario, I would love to see a follow-up sequel and maybe down the line a series. Maybe we don't get like the biggest actors in it, but maybe we get them for cameos and stuff like that in some of the stuff. But like, I would love to see something put together where we have multiple seasons of a series that can give us like, Monster of the Week, but then also have like a season story arcs and stuff like that too to it.
Yeah.
Because Monster of the Week, Ghost of the Week fits perfectly because it's Ghostbusters. I'm basically thinking like a live action real Ghostbusters. Like if
I was
you
gonna
remember
say,
that cartoon.
we're living in this age of old animated shows being revived. You could do a new version of that show, which I've always heard that this movie was kind of written as like a longer episode of that that show. So definitely makes sense if that's something that the people were fans of and you want to tell more stories similar like that, just start doing that again.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that's totally a route to go. Or like I said, live action version of that. would be a cool way to go, and just, pick it up with these characters still, like, moving forward. No wrong answers. I just think there's a lot, like you said, a lot of potential, and I'm just really hoping that we get the chance for a sequel and or series and more to be able to expand on this potential that we have right now. But as we always say, that's what we think. Let us know in the comments below. What did you think of Ghostbusters Frozen Empire? What was your favorite part? Did you enjoy Nadim the Fire Master? Which I did. I think it was absolutely hilarious. There are no wrong answers. What would you like to see in a potential sequel or a potential series or a potential revival of the Real Ghostbusters cartoon? Let us know in the comments below. And as always, don't forget, like, subscribe, and turn on notifications to hear about all of the latest audio and video podcast releases. Bye, everybody!
Poppin' Off presents That Recap Show.